Welcome to the Vortex Nation podcast, brought to you by lovers of hunting, shooting, public lands, the Second Amendment, and good food. Okay, so this one's going to go a little bit differently. I guess we kind of say that about a lot of these. We kind of like to mix it up, right?
Just shift on the fly.
Shift on the fly. So we got a crew of 5 here. Jimmy on the mic. We got Mark, Ryan Muckenhirn, Erik Barber, and Paul Neess. So pretty much everybody here, y'all know about. They've been on at least once before.
We've been here before.
Erik has some questions to ask, though. Erik is going on a South Dakota archery backpacking mule deer hunt.
Yep.
Very soon.
Yep.
And then later on, following that, it's going to be on a backpacking Montana hunt.
Yes.
For rifle.
Yep.
So this time, and I don't want to speak too much for you, but I know that you have quite a few questions. You are essentially representing. Why don't you go into it?
Yeah. So for me, obviously, all my hunting background, just to provide some background here, because like we were joking around before, I represent the people, the people who are like thinking about doing a Western hunt or doing something out west that maybe they haven't done before. I have a lot of deer and turkey hunting experience in the Midwest, and I've really never had a hunt where I've had to live out of a tent, where I haven't had the necessities of like, I'm going to just, run in, and after I get out of the woods, I'm going to go into the house, warm up a microwave meal or whatever, and relax, and then wake up again the next morning. So that's going to be different on, the South Dakota trip and the Montana trip, like you mentioned. So I guess a lot of this is just going to be me bouncing questions off you guys, because I feel like the guys we got in this room is a good starting point for me to, pick the brains of. And that's been, I've been doing a lot of research on my own, but I really want to bounce a lot of this stuff off you guys and see if some of the calls that I'm making are the right ones, what your guys' thoughts are, and really how someone can get into hunting out west and some of these other out-of-state hunts without feeling like they're going to break the bank doing it,
Right.
Because one of the sayings that I heard actually from the Born and Raised guys is buy tags, not gear. And I feel like that's an awesome phrase, especially if you want to get into some of this stuff. But obviously, to do this, there is certain things that you're going to need, and that's what I'm hoping to bounce off you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And to be clear, Erik won't be asking any questions of me because I am in arguably perhaps even less of an experienced position than Erik because he's been hunting. He's a hunting fanatic here in Wisconsin. But can we kind of recap for those of you who might just be being introduced to Paul and Ryan and Mark here? Can you guys go through a quick version of your Western hunting, backpack hunting experience that you have that Erik will be able to draw on? Because I think it's pretty interesting. We got a wide swath of experience here.
Yeah, this is Paul. I mean, I grew up in the same area. I grew up in the Midwest as a kid, started hunting at a very young age. Really quickly, I sort of realized that I wanted more adventure out of my hunting. I mean, at a young age in my teens. And then in my 20s, I finally basically packed everything up, moved out to Idaho and Montana, bounced around, went to a guide school out there. And then really spent the next 17 years involved in professionally guiding out there. So a lot of experience. Spent a lot of time in Idaho. I was lucky enough to work for outfitters that had territory that contained bighorn sheep, and so I did a lot of hunting for bighorn sheep. That involved a lot of really hardcore backpacking stuff, remote country, good gear, steep stuff. So, yeah, pretty good background in this.
I'll say. Ryan?
I started, similar kind of lifestyle as Paul without the extreme, guiding for 17 years and that kind of thing. But growing up, I'm from Minnesota originally and, hunted a lot of small game and waterfowl, got crazy into waterfowl in my teens and into my early 20s, and really more into my teens. Hunted whitetails very stereotypically, I guess, for a Minnesota hunter. Like you had your firearms opener, and if you were lucky, maybe the weekend thereafter. And that was my big game hunting from the time I was 12 to the time I was about 18. And my first Western hunt was in 2007. I was working at a gun shop, and a customer of mine said, hey, find us a mule deer hunt, and if you find one, you can come with. And so I searched for about 8 months, ended up talking to some folks that I knew coming into the shop that knew some folks, and connected with a gentleman out of northwestern South Dakota, and we went on a hunt, and it changed my life. From that point forward, hunting where there were no trees and only sky and very large buttes and bluffs and mesas and plateaus, chasing mule deer specifically, I just can't look at a whitetail the same way again. And so now I've hunted a lot of the West, not as much as Paul, but I've hunted Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Arizona, New Mexico, Nebraska. I'm just crazy about it. It's consuming.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
You get bit.
Oh yeah, hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's an easy thing to get bit by once you do it, for sure. So this is Mark. I grew up in Western Washington, chasing Columbia blacktail and Roosevelt elk. So those were the two things that we hunted predominantly, mostly with the rifle. In that state, you have to choose your weapon, if you will. So if you're going to bow hunt deer, then you can't rifle hunt deer. So my entire family rifle hunted. So, that was definitely a big part of what we did as a family. So mostly rifle hunted when I lived there. Did some waterfowling, a fair amount of turkey hunting. Once we got turkeys, we didn't always have turkeys, and then kind of the turkey boom hit, and they were a mystery for a while for sure, and got into that as well. Kind of the reverse story from you guys. I kind of started out about as far west as you can get, and migrated east, predominantly with work. But yeah, for me, like hunting whitetails was like a new thing. When I moved to Nebraska, I was working for Cabela's out there, and that was the first time I jumped up in a tree, was when I went out there, post college. But yeah, as far as quote unquote experience, yeah, I enjoy hunting a variety of things. So I like the places it takes me, the landscapes you get to see, learning more about those animals and where they live. And so by that, I've traveled fairly extensively throughout the West. Like I said, everything from blacktails in Western Washington, or coos deer in Arizona, or hunted Alaska several times. So just like you said, it's easy to get bit, and the more things you learn about, the more things you want to do, and the more places you want to go and see and try hunting different ways. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we've got Erik pretty fanned up now.
Yeah.
He's ready to go.
Oh, absolutely. So this is who you got to draw from. So I see you got a big list of questions there. Let's get her going.
Absolutely. So kind of like we touched on, there's obviously a financial investment in this stuff, especially when you're brand new to it. So to provide some perspective, I feel like in the Midwest, out east, if you're just whitetail tree stand hunting, you can kind of get by with, let's say, your fleece gear that you bought at whatever retailer for 50% off. It's affordable, not very technical apparel. And now on the other side of the spectrum there, once you start going out west, you're looking at a little bit more technical clothing, stuff that is going to work for you a little bit more than just say throwing on all your favorite sweatshirts and sitting in a tree stand to beat the cold on a November day. So, for example, looking into next week when I'm out in South Dakota, we're looking at temperatures probably in the 90s, being able to stay cool, and also stay dry while doing that, and just being able to avoid heat fatigue and all that stuff. So I guess. And there's obviously a lot of other things in here, like tents and hydration systems and all that other stuff that I kind of want to get into. But, I guess, how do you guys kind of identify stuff that would be really nice to have and stuff that you really do need before you dive into some of these Western hunting situations?
I'll grab one here, because not that long ago I had started doing this. So my first hunt out west, I remember I was driving a full-size Silverado with a 6'8" bed, and it was completely full to the topper, me and another guy, full tilt. And so every parka, sweatshirt, you name it. I had this thought that I was going to go hunt on the ice planet Hoth. And then I was in a die of exposure. And so when I started chasing Western deer and antelope, I was wearing my duck camo. And so you had mentioned something that fellas that we had on here earlier said, buy tags, not gear. At that point in time, I was making no money. I was going to school. I sustained on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, quite literally peanut butter and jelly sandwiches while in the field, and did not have good gear per se or per standard now. So I think it is important. If I could go back in time, I would pack a quarter of what I packed. That was the biggest thing. And just, now as I look at it and my gear has gotten more technical as you're piecemealing it together, I found, merino base layers are very important. Puffy jacket, which Mark Boardman turned me on to. I was adamant I was never going to wear a puffy jacket, and now I just scour the REI and Backcountry bargain bins for puffy jackets.
quite possibly one of the most important pieces of kit you can have with you, in my opinion.
No doubt. And good boots. That was one thing, the first hunt that I went on I did not have, was good boots. Huge, paramount. So on the clothing side of thing, things. And people ask me too, they're like, well, I need to go out and buy, X brand in full quantity. Like I've got to buy their full lineup.
Right.
And you're looking at, with some of these more, well-reputed technical clothing brands, you're looking at thousands of dollars of outerwear.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point that we're making here, you don't have to do it. You don't have to spend all of that money at one point in time. And I don't recommend it. I can't afford to, so I don't. It's piecemealing here and there, and it's repurposing a lot of gear that a lot of folks would not necessarily assume would be kosher for hunting, like a lot of mountaineering stuff, a lot of alpine gear, a lot of ski gear, stuff like that. It works really well too. But lighter weight technical garments, merino wool, very breathable stuff, a lot of down, and then layering systems. That was one thing that as a Midwestern hunter, I'd never grasped the concept of, was layering systems until I started hunting the West. So like you said, you're throwing on, the heaviest of heavy that you can put on, and you're going to go sit in a tree stand and freeze for 6 hours. Mm-hmm. When you're in this Western landscape, you're almost constantly in motion, or you're in motion a lot more than you would be when you're affixed to a tree. So yeah, layering systems, super, super important. And I've gone to lighter and lighter and lighter weight gear seemingly every season to just try to get that down, because when you're cold, you're going to throw that puffy on. When you're moving, you're going to take it all off. So what you've got written down, merino, puffies, stuff like that, paramount. But good footwear is also really, really important.
So when you say you brought too much gear the first time you went out there, I mean, do you just go out there now on like just one outfit and just keep that on the entire time? Or?
Yes, good question. So working with Paul and Mark and your brother Dave and a lot of the other guys here that do a lot of this, it's kind of fun because we talk about how much our packs weigh. I'm not going to say it's like a contest to see who can get the lightest pack, but it is something that you strive for.
Right, because it's just a race for second,
yeah.
Dave.
Right, correct, yeah. Exactly.
Stinking engineers.
But it is something where I think we have the tendency to over-kit ourselves. And it's a hindrance. It really is. You just weigh yourself down, you expend more calories, you end up being more uncomfortable, you have more stuff to carry and keep track of. So yes, like when I go out there now, my first hunt was, I think, a total of 9 days counting travel. And I want to say I had 14 pairs of socks with. And that is completely unacceptable. 14 pairs of socks is pretty much the same size as about most of the outerwear that I carry with now. So I'm big on, there's a company called Darn Tough. I wear their socks. So I bring 2 or 3 pairs, depending on how long the hunt is, and just rotate those through. Merino underwear, that's a thing. It's important. A couple pairs of those. Don't feel like going crazy on that. And just leaving the bulk of all the other stuff at home. You don't need to bring 4 hunting knives. You can bring 1.
There's the problem is there's a really strong tendency when you're sort of packing for a trip, and you want to try to, you start to think of all the eventualities out there, and you start to try, well, I want to cover this, and I want to cover this, and I want to cover
pack
that.
For vacations that
it's
way.
Real easy to do. Yeah,
I always pack way too much for vacations
yeah.
because inevitably you fall in the water or spill ketchup on your shirt.
Right.
I do always like to ask myself the question, though, because if you don't have the ability to get back to civilization, if you do need something, or if it's extremely inconvenient, sometimes I like to ask myself, so if I needed this when I'm out there, how much would I pay for it when I was on the mountain? Yeah. And oftentimes that can assist in answering my question. And part of that is, do I want to spend the money on this piece of gear? Or also, do I want to bring it with me in the event I need it? Like I said, you got to balance that, right? Because you can't bring the kitchen sink; it is going on your back. Yep. Potentially, if you are successful and get an animal, you need room in your pack to at least get that first load out.
Yeah,
it takes a willingness to say that I don't need this. I'm probably not going to need that. And one of the things, of course, this is up front a little tough for you, Erik, but after you've done this a number of times, you start to realize, you look at when you at the end of a hunt and you look at the gear that you actually used and didn't use. And after a while you start to see, I brought this thing along 3 times. I've never used it.
Yep.
Boom, it's out of there.
Yep.
But until you've done that a little bit, it's a little tough. You haven't been out there, and seen what actually is going to come in handy and not handy. But that's, kind of what we're doing here a little bit, talking through it.
Right.
But, you do, after you've carried something a lot of times, you realize, no, I don't need that thing anymore.
Yeah.
Packs of batteries are one. I think everybody's got
multiple knives.
Oh, yeah. I think everybody's got a couple of cool flashlights and headlamps and illumination devices. And I can remember when I first went on this hunt, I was using a pack that was around 1,850 cubic inches, and that thing was so full, it was going to explode. And I thought, or I think back now, like, let's say I had to pack out a deer on that first hunt that I went on. Like, what would I have done? Would I have just done a pocket dump of all my stuff out on the prairie and like then butchered the deer and quartered it and put it in my pack and walked back and done this? But packs of batteries, I would bring multiple packs of batteries. Completely unacceptable. Like, you don't need them. Get a good, efficient light. You don't need a million lumen light. You need a light that you can navigate with and that you can signal with. And, you know, if you look at an LED light and how bright they are, you can see them from a long, long ways away. Some, you know, redundancy can be important, but a lot of times you overdo it. The tendency is to overdo it.
I'll talk about redundancy. Bring 2 headlamps.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bring 2 headlamps, have them both gassed up with fresh batteries. Have your secondary headlamp convenient, because if you're using your headlamp and the batteries go out or it goes down for any reason, it will be dark out and it will be difficult to find your secondary headlamp if it's buried somewhere. So you want to keep that handy. You want to have it gassed up. And I would also suggest bringing some extra batteries, because you're going to want to load your first headlamp up too. We're not talking pounds of batteries.
Don't
Ryan,
bring pounds.
No.
I still probably have most of those unopened packages of energizers somewhere.
Well, and you brought up a good point with the Merino stuff, because that was one debate, and I ended up going with Merino stuff.
Yep.
But I was doing a lot of research, you know, probably 2 months ago about like Merino versus synthetic and pros and cons. And basically what I've gathered from some of my research is Merino is going to be naturally odor resistant, which is very important.
Advantageous when you're hunting. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. But one of the cons that I saw to it is it might not dry as fast as some of the synthetics out there.
And that's true. I think one merit to Merino and wool garment in general, though, is that when you do get wet, and you will get wet eventually, it just seems like you can be wet with it on and not as uncomfortable as when you're wearing a synthetic.
Yeah, you'll be a little warmer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it might not have that natural, or I shouldn't say natural, but unnatural drying capability, but you're still sustainable when you're wet.
Right.
And what I found, and especially being a predator hunter in West and Midwest, calling coyotes, and if you're doing it mobile and you're moving around a lot in the winter, you know, when you're moving through the snow, you get very warm, you get very sweaty. But then when you sit for 45 minutes to an hour on a coyote call or a bobcat call, you begin to freeze if you're just soaking wet with sweat. It seems to me, it's been my experience that the Merino and similar wool blends help mitigate that considerably. They pull that moisture off your body and they get it towards the outer layers of the garment. And if you multi-layer Merino, it is a very strange effect. The first time I wore Merino garments, I looked back and I said, how did I ever hunt before?
Yeah.
I mean,
there's another part to this to remember, though, too. And one of the things you learn, Erik, when you start hunting in the mountains, you avoid sweating up.
Yep.
You very much avoid that.
Yeah.
So if for example, when we hunted sheep, many times you would have a long, hard climb early in the day. And you pace yourself going up. As soon as I felt I was starting to sweat, I would either stop or peel out of garments. And literally, there were times I'd be in 20-degree temperatures climbing a mountain down to a thin T-shirt. Just as quickly as I sweat up, I peel layers off and take them off. And so you learn to try to avoid that as much as you can.
Just to stay dry.
Yeah, to stay dry. I mean, for what Ryan's talking about, allowing yourself to get soaked in sweat, that's a deal breaker. I mean, you just don't do that. You peel off. To me, wearing like the Merino wool stuff, where I would be worried is underwear, T-shirts, that sort of thing, is they do take longer to dry. But usually what you can do is you rotate, and it's a matter of trying to wash something like that sometime in the course of your hunt. And you might take your underwear off, change your underwear, wash them in a stream or something, and hang them on a branch. And they do take a while to dry when you're doing that. But try to keep that in mind. If you're out in that kind of country and you're traveling light and you've got a small tent, you don't have a ton of survival gear with you, is don't get sweated out.
Yeah.
That's really important.
I mean, that's a safety thing as much as it is a comfort thing,
Right.
But looping back to the Merino, we talked about the odor control of Merino is actually astonishing. Like I've come off like a long hunt, and maybe I freaking unload all my stuff in my room, let it set for a day or whatever. You kind of come back and like you said, give it the sniff test. And there's been times I'm like, did I wash this? And I don't even know because it's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, to your point, Paul, with getting sweated up, I think that's one thing that when you're hunting with somebody, it can be, I think people have a tendency to want to go. And they kind of have, they're, like you said, that animal is over there and it's like, nope, we got to move. And man, I agree with you 100%, Paul. It is important to make the time to slow down, to peel back those layers. Like we're talking about, these Western hunts, they're very dynamic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you're moving a lot, you're stopping a lot. And sometimes you're moving a lot and then stopping, and if you get to a glassing knob or something like that, you're going to be stopped for a significant amount of time. So it's really important to slow down and take the time to take those layers off and not get sweated up, because when you get to that glassing knob, generally it's going to be a little bit more windswept. It's going to be open. It's going to be higher up.
Yep.
And
when you start to top out and you get on top of a ridge or like you said, a glassing spot, usually you're putting stuff on just
You're
about
exposed.
as fast as you put it off coming up. And so it is kind of funny sometimes. I mean, you feel like you're doing this constant changing and pulling gear off and on. But it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
When you get up there and your underlayers are still dry and then you pull your puffy on and your rain jacket over your puffy, you're feeling pretty good. You're warm, you're ready, you're not with clients a lot of times guiding, I really had to watch that. And guys many times when they're fresh to that country, they're really not familiar with that. They're typically not in as good a shape. And so you have to force guys to pace themselves and ask them if they're starting to get sweated up, or if you can see they're getting sweated up. Just stop and give them a break, tell them to peel something off, and
And talking about that puffy, I mean, that's something to just keep handy. Like I keep that in the top lid of my backpack or an open side pocket if it's not raining or going to be subjected to extensive moisture in any way. Just because that is just such a lightweight on and off piece that. You can cool off really quick by taking it off, and you can warm up really quick by putting it on.
Right.
So keeping that handy is paramount.
We've talked about underwear, puffies, base layers. I've heard rain jacket thrown around.
Boots.
What boots? What's the typical, like, if you did sliced a dude in half so you could see the layers, what would that diagram look like? You've got how does it work? From very base, like what is touching your skin to what's on the outside, what do you typically take?
I'll give mine, and then I'd actually be curious to get
in order.
Get yours
from skin to top.
So from skin to top for me, I'll wear a long sleeve, and this is me going on a hunt where I feel like I might encounter a variety of conditions, right?
Yeah, you have to be kind of careful to pin down exactly what type of hunt we're talking about.
Right.
Erik going out 90 degrees in South Dakota is going to be a little different from a late season Montana elk hunt.
Totally.
Right.
Totally. Yeah. So this would be, I'd say, like where you might expect to get a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is exactly what I'm expecting on that November Montana hunt.
Yep.
I mean, I'm basically what I've been told.
Leaning towards the cold or the spectrum.
Exactly.
There.
I've been told to prepare from anything from like single digits up to 70 degrees.
Yep.
So.
Well, and then one thing to remember also, though, if you are even on a warm weather hunt, those mornings are cold and those evenings are cold.
Yeah, we were just out in Wyoming and it was chilly in the morning.
Yeah, you wanted to be bundled up a little bit, and then all of a sudden the sun started hitting you, and again, you're freaking stripping down to basically nothing. You know? So for me, I'd start with a Merino long sleeve top. Either just a regular or even a quarter zip, and maybe I might even be a little bit extreme compared to you guys. But over that, I'll put a Merino T-shirt, and that gives me the ability, depending on where I'm at in that layering system. I may eventually pull that long sleever off and just be in the tee. Over that Merino T-shirt, I'll have some sort of vest, either a lightweight puffy or I guess like a soft shell vest. And then after that, I'll either have a soft shell. Well, after that, I might have my hooded puffy, and then soft shell jacket with a hood, or my rain layer with a hood, and that'd be my top.
So not
including gloves.
Like a shirt of some sort. You do the long sleeve with a short sleeve on top of it.
Yep.
Followed by a vest, followed by a puffy or a rain jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark. And Mark's going cold there. When you're putting a vest and then a puffy on top, that's you're anticipating cold weather.
Right.
Mine would be very similar to Mark's. I mean, generally a light layer of merino wool, depending on the weather. Maybe a light soft shell or a fleece top. If it's cold, then the puffy on top of that, and then usually an outer shell rain jacket of some type. One pair of decent socks, probably a lighter technical pair of pants, and then again, if it's windy or cold, you have rain gear to break that over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And merino wool isn't just for the cold, right? So for those who maybe aren't
it's
familiar with
it's
that,
pretty good
when you hear
stuff.
when you hear
yeah.
wool, it sounds like it's something for the cold weather,
Yeah.
but I've worn it too in the warm weather, and it's
Yeah,
That's a
and
great
if
point.
someone, if they haven't seen or handled merino, the thing is it's very thin, it's very soft. It's not what people may think of as kind of old school, thick, heavy, scratchy wool. It's very
Yeah.
different from that. And you can wear it in very warm weather. You can get it to very thin layers. I think the only beef I've had with merino is you do have to be aware it's fairly fragile stuff. It is quite easy to tear it up, and if you're wearing layers and you get down to peeling everything off, but a very thin merino shirt, they shred up really easily. So if you're going through brush and that kind of thing, be aware of that it's easy to rip it up.
Okay.
I would say that everything mentioned is exactly what I do as well. But I do want to talk about rain layer. So I think a lot of people will pack gear like for a particular event of weather. Like, it's going to snow, so I'm going to have a parka, or it's going to rain, so I'm going to have a rain jacket, or it's, this, that, or the other thing. But like a good rain shell is non-insulated. It's breathable. It's a 2.5 to 3.5 layer garment. But it does a lot for you as a windbreaker. It does a lot for you as a a fairly durable shell.
It is one of the most critical pieces of gear to have. Absolutely the most critical. When we got down to kind of checking guys for what they're bringing with them on a hunt, and maybe we're going up and it's just a bluebird day, beautiful out, warm temperatures, sun is shining. Number one question we always ask guys is, have you got your rain gear with you?
Right.
Just very, very important. It serves so many roles. Thinking of it as just rain protection is you're missing half the value of that. Yeah.
And obviously, being dry is paramount. And as Mark said earlier, it is a safety concern, because if you do get wet and it gets cold, man is not adapted to the cold. We are a hairless creature. And we don't do well when it's, when you're soaking wet and it's blowing wind and the temperatures are below 40.
Yeah.
That can turn a fairly good day into a seriously bad day. I had that happen in 2009. I was on kind of a mid-October antelope hunt in South Dakota, and same thing, bluebird day, beautiful out. I want to say that we were glassing in T-shirts. And so I set off with my hunting partner. We were going to chase down a herd of antelope that we had seen at about a mile and a quarter. And we had worked this group of antelope from about, I'm going to say 11 or noon, and finally caught up to them about 4 p.m. And so mid-October, sundown or dark in South Dakota is, probably late 5, somewhere in there. Half 5, as our British colleagues say. Well, I went out there, I had like a shell, but not a technical shell. I had a wool shirt, like kind of a light to medium weight wool shirt, and a cotton T-shirt underneath. And I thought like I was completely fine and totally adequate. And when we had gotten out there, we found this group of antelope, ended up taking a buck, and sent my hunting partner back for the truck. Long story short, he went the wrong direction. He went right instead of left. And I did not see him again for about 7 hours. In that time, while I was inappropriately and inadequately equipped, the temperature had gone from, like I said, around 70, upper 60s to 70 during the sunlight hours to right around 30, but the wind was probably right around 30 as well. So that put me, with a wind chill right around 0. And I was so miserable. I was like seriously contemplating, like, what am I going to do? And I think I had 5 rifle cartridges, a flashlight with no batteries, a dead GPS, and I think I had a Bic lighter in my pocket. And no hydration and no snacks, because I thought, this will be a quick one and done thing. Rule number 3, don't ever set your pack down. Always take it with you.
Yeah.
It's like, always take your pack with you. Unless it's like within line of sight of you.
Yeah.
Your pack always goes with you.
Even then, be careful.
Yeah. right. And
line of sight could be across a canyon.
that's true. That's true.
Line of sight goes from out of sight really quickly.
If you can underhand a rock at your pack, you're probably close enough.
Okay.
So I sat on this rock in absolute darkness. It was a new moon too. I remember that. It was just terrible, and ended up ended up finding my way back to the truck, and he was facing the other direction and didn't have the headlights on, and just happened to see a light from inside my cab from quite a distance away, and I was frozen. Like, I was looking at it now, I was like probably getting a little pre-hypothermic.
Yep.
Holy crap.
And again, it was like 70 degrees that day. It was, but it happens really quick, especially in the western states and the desert states too. So never assume that the weather is going to be okay. Had I a good rain shell, that would have been a phenomenal wind blocker. I would assure you I would have been quite a bit more comfortable. Did not have that though. So the rain shell means more than rain. It means wind. It means even cold. It's a decent insulator, just keeping heat trapped underneath that layer. So yeah, learned that lesson the hard way.
Yeah, even like you said, I mean, we're talking about these hunts being dynamic, and they're dynamic, in the way maybe which you move through them, but that weather is equally dynamic. And I mean, there might be some exceptions, but I'm just reiterating, what you're saying. And the weight of your rain gear might change. Like maybe for, if you're going on a sheep hunt, you might want like a 3-layer rain shell. And if you're, just packing it in the event you may end up needing it, then, it's nice to have, a lighter weight, thinner, like it's like, hey, this fits in the bottom of my pack. It's not like I'm not making a huge commitment to bringing it with me, but, if I do need it, it's going to be a big asset. Same with the Puffy. You can bring a puppy with you too if you want. Everybody likes puppies.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're just so
yeah.
important.
There are different levels of rain gear too. The rain gear that you would use in say the Rockies are very different from the rain gear you might take to Alaska or Washington or your part of the country. Typically, when you get rain in the Rockies, it doesn't last a long time for the most part. So you can usually get by with lighter rain gear. I would definitely take heavier rain gear to Alaska than I would hunting in Idaho or Montana, though.
Well, and when I've hunted in Alaska, I mean, oftentimes my outer layer is my waterproof layer, and it does not, by and large, come off.
Yeah.
I might adjust, some of my inner stuff, but that stuff is, my main pant is, a heavier waterproof pant. My main jacket. Is a heavier waterproof jacket. And, if you're totally in the backcountry, then I probably wouldn't bring the soft shell. I would just layer up underneath that and have all my insulation be in that heavier jacket also provides, good protection from the wind and the rain as well, and some insulation. But
can I bump in, Eric, and ask a question?
Yeah.
Maybe
yeah.
I know we're asking because you're about to go on this trip, but I've been curious because we're talking about water, I guess, protection from the ankles up. But what happens when you cross through like a stream or when, you're walking through really wet, muddy, high grass? Like, is that where, like, Mark, you were breaking in some boots, which by the way, I've heard you should break in your boots before. You should break in any shoes before you use them in a big time situation. But you put beeswax on them. Does that have to do with water, or is that just to protect the leather, or is there anything?
No, I mean, that's true. I was treating the leather on those boots to, make them waterproof. And it was, I can't remember the
Wet
name
feet
of it.
suck.
Wet feet suck.
Beeswax is good stuff. It really works. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny when Paul and I were just talking about that the other day, and you were talking about beeswax and whatever I thought I had that I was treating my boots was actually a whatever the base is beeswax,
the product,
and it makes them look real nice too. But definitely prevents that water from penetrating the boot and hopefully not making it weigh. Being uncomfortable and also not weighing 500 pounds. Every time you try to take a step.
Yeah.
I'll jump back to Jimmy's question too, and some of the things you can do. You really do want to try to keep your feet as dry as possible. So pre-treating your boots is very helpful. When you have to cross water and streams, I will definitely do what I can to not get my boots wet. And many times it's easier just to take your boots off and socks off and wade across, find a place that you can get across. If you've treated your boots really well, I mean, you can use gaiters, which will help a lot. They'll shed water. If you're going through wet brush, gaiters are a really helpful thing. And you can, if you're fast and you can see a short, shallow stream, you can sprint across them with boots and gaiters over the top, and you pretty much keep water out of your boots. But I mean, I'm pretty picky about that. I'll try to keep my boots as dry as possible, and if I have to go out of my way to find a way around water without going through it, I'll do that. Crossing logs is something guys do. I'll throw that in quickly just as an aside. If you're out backpacking, especially if you're solo, crossing logs to get over streams, very tricky proposition. You want to be really, really careful about that.
Yep.
It's a great way to kill yourself if you have a heavy pack on and you end
Literally.
up turtling upside down in
Yeah.
there. Yeah. So that's when I'm solo, I am incredibly wary of crossing logs. I usually will go out of my way to avoid doing that.
Would you say the same goes for like stones, maybe like wet stones? Is that kind of asking
You could,
to slip and
yeah.
stuff?
I mean, obviously, if it's a larger stone and you slip on it, and even if you do something like roll your ankle, that's a deal breaker though. If it cripples you up and you can't go anyplace, so I'd be really worried about that. Yeah, like smaller stones are fine, but trying to go stepping stone on big stones across a stream, that's a recipe for disaster there. So
That actually
be
brings
really
up
careful.
that brings up one thing I did want to talk about is how I've heard of a couple things like inReach, to stay connected while you're out there and other methods, because that's one thing I think, even right here in the Midwest when I'm, hunting out of a tree stand, I'm packing in a tree stand, you're hanging a tree stand in the dark. That's one thing that I've just gotten in the habit of, that my wife has literally required me to do. When I get to the base of the tree, send her text, is like, okay, here, and then once I'm set up, it's like, okay, I'm good to go. Because those are the 2 points where it's the most risky.
Tree stands get a lot of people. They
So
do.
I guess on the flip side of that, I'm assuming, which thankfully in a lot of areas in Wisconsin, I have cell service. Now we're talking about a canyon in South Dakota or river basin in Montana.
Much better odds you're not going to have cell service.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you guys recommend as far as that is concerned?
That Garmin inReach is a great product. I use that.
Okay.
They're not tremendously expensive. They do allow you to send and receive texts via sat phone, so you don't need any cell coverage at all.
Yeah.
So they're actually they work quite well.
Okay.
They actually came out with a new one this year called the Mini, which is very small
Okay.
and light, and I think it retails sort of in the mid $300 price
Okay.
range. The one catch with those is you do have to sign up for a subscription service. So you are going to pay on a monthly or yearly plan for that satellite service. But they're great peace of mind. They have the ability to, with a single button push, to call for help.
Yeah.
So if you end up in a bad spot, as long as you can push that button, you'll get search and rescue eventually to come looking for you.
And this is possibly just my opinion, but I'm sure a lot of you guys would agree. I mean, I look at something like an inReach, that's life insurance. Just like a tree stand hunter, if you're not hunting without a safety harness, that's your life insurance as a tree stand hunter. So I guess that's easier to justify.
It's good. I spent a lot of years when I was guiding. We did a lot of, for example, on a sheep hunt, we might pre-scout a sheep hunt before a client got out there. And so I might be out on a typical 5 or 6 day pre-scout looking in different areas for sheep, and I'd be solo by myself. And at that time, I had very little money. I didn't make a lot of money, so buying a sat phone or something like the inReach was just not an option for me. The biggest thing really to remember doing that stuff is what's between your ears is kind of the biggest thing. And I would always, when I do that kind of thing, and if I'm out solo, when I left that trailhead or left my truck or whatever it was, I almost paused for like a minute and sort of mentally like reset a gear in my head to go into that mode of being solo out in the woods and trying to think about things a little bit differently and move a little bit slower and be aware that anytime you crossed a stream or you climbed some rocks or whatever it was, that you were in a position that, nobody was probably going to be able to come and get you. So you thought about every single thing that you did with that light on, and you'd be surprised. I mean, if you keep that mindset, you'll do yourself a ton of good. Hopefully you'll never have to use that rescue button on an inReach, but it really was. I mean, I do that today when I'm out. It's just like it's a momentary pause and just a quick mental reset.
Yeah.
And everything from stuff like what I would start to do is when I went into areas solo, is I would be careful to, for example, if I saw like a sandy area, I would go out of my way to sort of leave tracks sometimes and just provide places, and I think about taking routes that if someone were looking for me at some point, that it would be an intuitive route that they might think somebody be found, and not to go off, into really obscure, difficult places, unless I had to do that, unless it was part of where I was going to look for animals at.
Would you, if you had to go off, would you leave some sort of tracks like you were talking
You
about?
can't. You can't always do that.
Not always
It was
possible.
just if I had the opportunity to leave a track or something without going way out of my way, I would always do it. But many times you can't.
Yeah.
There's places you just can't.
Yeah.
That's a hugely important point, Paul. And like you said, that mental reset and to slow down and to really think about the choices that you're making, which can be
Exactly, yeah.
difficult kind of in the heat of the moment, particularly if, maybe you have spotted something and you're trying to get over
big,
there.
Big
but,
excitement.
but you gotta slow
Yeah.
down because
And of course, those are the times that guys are probably most likely to get
Yep.
into trouble when you're very excited, you're chasing something,
Yep.
fouling, whatever it is. That's when you're probably most prone to
Yep.
making a mistake.
And, and whether you are with somebody in the backcountry, just things like, okay, you've got an animal down. Okay, now you're starting to work on it. And you've got your knife out.
Yep, exactly.
You always have to be careful, right? You never want to cut yourself.
Yeah.
But, it can be exponentially more a big deal, particularly if you're solo. But if you're by yourself,
Yep.
in the backcountry, you only have you to rely on. And if
Right.
you aren't able to stop some
Yeah.
bleeding, that's a
Yep.
bad
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
When you open a box at work, it's just kind of like I open a box at work while I'm eating lunch
Right.
with a phone in my shoulder talking to you across the, but it's
Yep.
like,
Well, and you're likely to be fatigued, right? And when do you
you're
make
tired,
when do you make
you're-
poor
you're
decisions or
excited. Yeah, you might be cold, you might be shaking.
Mm-hmm.
All
you
easy
might be in a
do.
hurry to
Yeah.
get back to a certain location or
Yeah.
maybe you don't have if you didn't have your spike camp with you or the ability to spend the night, you're trying to get back somewhere
Yeah.
because there is a weather situation going on and that's another thing. And this is kind of contingent on the hunt, but gosh, I can tie everything into bringing a puffy jacket with you apparently. But when you're out in those landscapes and you're further away from civilization, I think at some level you have to plan on things going south a little bit.
Right.
And by that I mean if you can, and this goes back into gear, and gear's expensive, but if you can carry a lightweight shelter with you, carry some of that, survival gear, carry enough clothes with you that you can get through the night. Like I said, even if you're on a warm weather hunt, there's the potential that you might have to spend the night.
I think you should always go out assuming that you might have to spend the night.
Have to spend the night.
And when you
Yep.
carry a day pack and you've got a small amount of gear with you, you should have that in the back of your head. You should never be out with the thought that just you absolutely couldn't spend the night someplace. And
have a way to start a fire.
yeah, you
Got to.
talked about
Yeah.
guys getting panicky, and one of the places guys get in trouble is if you're not mentally prepared to do that and ready to do that, and it's getting dark, and maybe you're a long ways away, and then you tend to push hard. You want to get back to where your camp is or your vehicle is, and that it's another place you can get into trouble. It gets too dark, you can walk off a rock cliff or break your leg or something like that. It's easy to do. So. Yeah, don't ever be unprepared to sleep out if you have to.
And I say these things because I've done it the other way before, and it's not cool at all.
No.
You've been in some pretty hairy spots because of it. One time in Alaska, luckily was able to learn those lessons up there. But yeah, dude, I'll never go out without the ability to spend the night because there's just too many variables and things can change so quickly. And I'll even go back into a whitetail hunt that I was on in Wisconsin. Bluebird day. Absolutely gorgeous. T-shirt weather. My buddy and I took our bikes in off this railroad grade, got back. We're kind of hunting like a river type stuff and got back in and got deep. And it was kind of interesting terrain, lots of like water and beaver ponds to navigate and this, that, the other. And we finally found a spot where like, oh, let's hunt. Ended up passing a pretty nice buck that night. And we met up, saw his headlamp. We met up, and he started walking, and I'm like, "Dude, where are you going?" He goes, "I'm going back to the truck." I'm like, "You're going the wrong way." And actually, admittedly, GPSs are my friend. I was born pretty much without a sense of direction. So if any of us are hunting together, and I say we should go this way, we should probably go the opposite way. But I felt pretty good about this. So we start walking, and again, Bluebird day, wasn't expecting to go super deep. It was just an afternoon, evening hunt.
Yeah. Wisconsin.
Didn't bring a way to start a fire. Didn't have rain gear. Didn't have extra clothes. Didn't have my puffy jacket. Like I said, it's just going to be a quick afternoon hunt, right? Well, we get going. It's already dark. Probably the biggest snowflakes I've seen fall out of the sky are raining down on us. Get a little bit turned around. Didn't have my GPS with me. No cell reception, just like all the things you don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
We get to a beaver pond, And which this is another thing. And even though we're kind of getting wet from something, he's like, don't get wet. I'm like, yeah, this is like, not good. Long story short, we eventually, we were on the right vector. We were able to navigate our way out of that. But, dude, that could have been really bad. And it was such a benign, innocent afternoon, beautiful day hunt that really could have gotten bad.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people...
Which all that could have been mitigated if you just had a few of the right things with you.
And a puffy jacket.
And a puffy jacket.
I think for a lot of people listening, you may have the notion that a Western hunt, quote unquote, is going to be this extreme mountaineering event in which...
Adrenaline junkie kind of...
And I hunt the Dakotas a lot, and I get a lot of people be like, yeah, it doesn't really count. It's not really a Western hunt. And I'll tell you this much. To Mark's point, to have the notion in your head that the area that you're entering is as benign or innocuous as anything compared to, say, Alaska, like where Paul and Mark have both hunted and have told me some amazingly extreme stories. The same misfortune can befall you anywhere you go.
Absolutely.
Whether it's Wisconsin or whether it's South Dakota. I've spent a night out on the prairie unexpectedly. It was not great. Sleeping is not really what you do when you're out there. You just kind of lay there and try to stay warm. And so it can go south really quick. So don't assume that the hunt that you're going on, if you're not going to Montana or Colorado or Alaska or Idaho or anything like that, don't assume that it's going to be this soft bunny hunt. Because I'll tell you, the area that you're going to hunt in South Dakota, I've hunted in South Dakota, and you're a long ways from anywhere.
Right.
And everything we were talking about, nobody's looking for you unless you tell them to look for you.
Yeah.
And you may not have that opportunity. So plan, to Paul's earlier statement, plan for cautious approach and use reason and logic when you're moving in, because whether it's northern Wisconsin or the soft, gentle plains of South Dakota, it can be treacherous.
Yeah, it's an interesting story I'll tell you. So a lot of times when you hunt in the West and you get into some of that terrain, you have a lot of visual clues around you. You can see ridges and peaks and that sort of thing. So a lot of times, some of that country, it's not wildly difficult to sort of identify about where you're at. You can do it a lot of times. But I'll tell you an interesting thing that gets a lot of people, and when I think back to the years that I was guiding, probably the thing that I was, after having several close calls with it, that paid a lot of attention to was you have a tendency a lot of times in the West to hunt ridges. Ridges make they're really good routes to get around places, to cover ground. You have the ability to sort of look down on things. But and many times your camp will be down below though. A lot of times you want to avoid camping up on a ridge. It's exposed to weather sometimes. You're sort of camping in places that you really might rather be actually able to hunt. When you're up high and you fall off a ridge in a lot of the Rocky Mountain country, what happens is a ridge will seem like a really easy avenue down. You can sort of see your way down through it. But what catches people is ridges always have finger ridges that come off them all the way down. And if you're not paying attention, it's incredibly easy to fall off the wrong finger ridge. And by the time you sort of realize what you've done, you've typically dropped, 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet. You're down committed below where you want it to be. And if you lost your visibility, then you're down in the trees. You can't see around you. It's a phenomenally easy way to get lost. A story I can tell you, one day we had a sheep hunt in Idaho, and we killed a really nice ram. And there was myself, another guide, and the client. Great guy, tough, fit guy, seemed very savvy about the mountains. And so after we killed this ram, we cut him up, and we were bringing him out with our packs. And so we split him up, and the hunter he had the part of the meat, he had the horns with him. He was very confident he knew the way down because we'd followed a clear-cut ridge that got us up there. And so we stopped, myself and the other guy, to load up the camp and the rest of the stuff on our packs. And he said, "Do you guys mind if I just continue on down this ridge and I'll meet you down below at the truck?" And it was very clear-cut ridge. And we said, "Sure, just, go ahead, we'll catch up with you." Well, we loaded up, eventually got down to the truck about 2 hours later, no sign of the guy, nothing, not a clue where he went. So we dumped all the stuff, we hiked back up, couldn't find any trace of him, went out, we searched all that afternoon for the guy. Late that evening, he called, and he had went clear down a finger ridge, broke off the wrong finger ridge, dropped down, ended up on the edge of the Salmon River.
Holy cow.
He knew that what he had done. he saw lights on the other side, so he swam across the Salmon River with a set of sheep horns and meat on his back. It was lucky he didn't die, and he was about exhausted. But it played out well. But it could have been really an ugly thing. And he did that what seemed like just this easy, quick hike down this nice open pine ridge, and it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah.
Nothing's easy out there.
No. I know we talked a lot about like the right gear to bring and how, bad decisions can impact you in safety and stuff like that. The last one I wanted to touch on before we kind of wrapped up.
We might even need a part 2.
I know. That's what I was
so many
thinking.
things to consider.
I know. One goes to another.
Yeah. That's very possible. Let's see what you got.
The last one I really kind of wanted to touch on because especially next weekend when it's going to be real hot, I'm really concerned about game care. In the event that I do kill something, what the heck do you do when it's 90 degrees and you got meat that can spoil super quick out there?
So I killed a buck in 16 in northwestern South Dakota, and when I shot him, it was in the mid to upper 70s. And
Is this the one that you had hanging for like a week?
8 days.
Or 8 days?
Yeah.
Jeez. All right, yeah. Anyway, carry on.
Right. So we took this buck, day one of the hunt. Great day, wonderful, great deer. And we were far enough back, and don't ask me why it had not crossed our mind. I don't know what we were thinking. We didn't bring ice. We had nothing. And so shoot this great deer, and now I've got all this meat to deal with. So I've got 4 quarters, I've got a neck, I've got back straps, I've got trimmings. And so game bags are extremely important. Yep. And I use a couple different kinds now. The one that I was using was a very simple cotton game bag. It's Game Bags of Alaska. They're very inexpensive. Yep. They're a good bag.
That's what I bought.
Yep, good bag, lightweight. And so I put, a quarter per bag in there, and then I had trimmings per bag. What I ended up doing is in our camp, we camped in kind of the shade of this very large juniper kind of outcropping, right? It's busting up here, and it was north-south facing, so that the sun never really hit it. And so I hung the head, I hung the cape, I hung 5 game bags up in that tree, and just kind of watched it. In the evenings, it was in the low 30s, so you had good temperature there, and the meat took a good, I guess the word I use is pack. Like it kind of gets a rind on the outside.
It's a crust on them. Yeah.
And so I would smell check the meat. I would feel check the meat, periodically through the day if we returned to camp.
For like yuck.
Yeah.
Feeling for slime.
Correct. Yes, exactly correct. If you feel that the outside of that game bag should be mostly dry, if you feel a slime, or if you smell just that, you've all had that thing of roast beef in your fridge that has maybe sat there for too long and you take it, that's bad, right? And no fault. Everything was good. So I had a really ideal situation with weather there, in which in the evenings, for 8 to 10 hours, it was in the low 30s. During the day, it did get up.
That's what saved you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
In the day, it did get up into the 60s and 70s, but it was in the shade, and I had really good airflow going through there too. So it was kind of on a high spot that the wind could blow through it, and 1, help pull heat off of it, and 2, keep egg-laying insects off there. So like flies, blowflies, things like that. And it ended up being probably the best venison I've ever eaten.
8 days later.
Yeah, correct.
Didn't you say it looked kind of funny when you
you pull it, it's black. You pull it out, and it's like this dark purple black rind on this meat. And so I probably
which is not savable meat.
No,
when it's done, you trim that off. Yeah, it's protective. Yeah.
One thing I will say is the question I get sometimes is, do you take the meat off the bone? And if you're going to hang quarters, if it's cool enough, if it's too hot, a bone in is going to hold a lot of heat, and it's going to spoil your meat from the inside too. I gambled in saying that it was going to be cool enough in the evening that by the time that those were hung after the first night, I could have assumed that quarter was going to cool through and through. So I left the bone on. One thing I will say is, like, having minimal oxygen exposure to that cut of meat is going to help preserve it. So when I got back home and started trimming it out, my father, who's not a big hunter or anything like that, and he's like a weekend whitetail hunter, for that one weekend a year in Minnesota. We're sitting there trimming this meat out in the kitchen. He's like, dude, no way. He's like, this is unsalvageable. I'm like, no, it's fine. And so you probably lost like 25% of it just to drying, but underneath that rind, underneath that crust, was absolutely dry aged, tenderized, wonderful, delicious venison. Right. Overall, I will tell you, it's probably a safer bet to bring ice and bring.
Yeah. I was going to say Ryan.
Unless your conditions are perfect.
Where Erik's hunting in those temps, odds are you're probably going to have to get that out relatively quickly. You're not going to be able to. Tips that you can use in the field, like Ryan says, definitely find shady places.
Yep.
And when you have temperatures at night that are getting down in the 30s, that's very helpful. I mean, that's going to save you. What we would do, we did a lot of archery elk hunting and killed elk early in the season, and a lot of times we weren't able to get those elk packed out for several days. But when you had those kind of lows at night, you were good. And what you can do in the day is you find a shady spot, and then you can, if you cover that meat with an insulating layer during the day, even if you have an old sleeping bag or, if you've killed and you're ready, you don't mind getting some of your gear a little bit bloody, which probably won't. It'll crust over, as we talked about. But during the day, if you cover that meat up and keep it in the shade, you'll keep that cooler temperature in from the night. Okay. And then as the evening comes around, you pull it off, you let it get exposed to the to the cool air again. The other you can do if you have flowing water is you can put meat in water. What we would usually do is have a piece of plastic or something, so you can kind of keep the meat dry and out of the water. But that you find a shady spot down low in a creek and do that, and it'll really cool that meat down.
Because water usually gets cool overnight, but then it takes so long for water to get warm again during the day that it stays kind of cool.
In the mountains, what you're going to find is you're going to have these little flowing streams, and they're at a constant temperature, and they're usually quite chilly. So they'll actually do a good job of that.
Well, like you said, keeping that meat dry, right? You definitely want to keep your meat dry throughout the process. Yeah. You want to keep it, clean. I think, that's probably intuitive. And one thing about if you have the ability to leave it in whole quarters, it will stay cleaner. You just got less surface area exposed to whatever it may come into contact with. And you're talking about creek bottoms, though, Paul. And that air, if you can hang your meat in a shady spot in a creek bottom,
it's cooler
it's
air
going to be a
coming
little bit
down
cooler.
through there.
Yep.
Ryan talked about, though, when you have a larger animal like an elk and it's warmer temperatures, you are probably going to have to bone them out because they'll do what they call bone sour, and they'll go bad from the inside out. So,
and correct me if I'm wrong, but a boned out animal is going to be easier to pack into a cooler for the transport back than a boned in animal.
It will be, yeah. But it's like Ryan said too. It's best if you don't have to do it, then I wouldn't do it because you do expose more surface area to bacteria and growth and that sort of thing. And the meat will definitely hang better on the bone.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it packs. I found packing out multiple quarters at a time, having the structure of the bone in that quarter helps a lot. And I boned out an entire mule deer and stuffed it in my pack one time. And what I found is, like, as I'm walking, like, the hammering action of footsteps is causing that meat to settle.
It does. It turns into a great big heavy ball down in the very bottom of your
and
pack.
It just flows the path of least resistance in your back. And pretty soon I'm like, did I add weight? What is happening here?
I've got 4 bowling balls in the bottom of my pack.
And they continue going down with gravity. But it's circumstantial, right? Bring ice, bring a good cooler. Other pack essentials. Again, I found myself early on in doing this, bringing way too much stuff, but a good knife, and not like 4 knives, but like a good knife.
A way to sharpen it.
Yep. And that's not a river rock. I've tried that too in my youth. Basic first aid kit, nothing serious. I mean, you're not going to be out there being a field surgeon. So if it requires more than a few gauze, you're probably in trouble. At that point in time, it's time to start cutting up clothing and putting it over a wound.
Hitting the SOS button.
So I think we have a tendency, especially when we start talking about first aid in the field, to like overpack, like bring a full med kit or like a bug out bag full of splints, tourniquets, chest depressurization things. Are arguably not required for this, just because if you do get in a scenario where it is severe enough that you can't stop it with a few gauze, we've got bigger problems.
Right, exactly.
I carry a Life Straw, the little water filter. It's a direct to source thing, so you're not pumping it into anything. If you find a pool that's not full of stagnant floaties, you can drink out of there. It's a pretty good thing. It might not taste the best, but at least it's going to do a pretty good job of getting rid of some microorganisms and particulates suspended in the water that might make drinking water a scary proposition.
Was that you can get Giardia from that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Giardia's, you can get E. coli. You can get, a whole slew of things you don't want. Oh, gosh. What else?
Water filtration is that's almost a discussion.
That was one I had written down, and I figured that's a different
Like I said, I feel like we need to do a part 2 because there's that. I wanted to ask more questions about even just the hanging game, too, that we were talking about as well.
I agree.
But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, keep it, for me anyway, I guess, I keep it pretty basic. To Paul's point and to Mark's point earlier, if you look at that when you're in your pack thing and be like, can I use this? You can probably justify it. If you say, will I use this? You probably won't.
Right.
So usually it gets pitched. I've watched my gear roster diminish exponentially as years go on. And now I compile it in a PDF, or excuse me, an Excel file, and it's a checklist that I do at the beginning of every hunt and season. And every year you'll trim the fat on that too. But
well, you'll trim and you'll add and
yeah,
improve.
It changes, you know. A good tarp, which you have written down.
Yep.
Oh, rope.
Oh yeah, rope. Rope's a good one. I used to bring like 500 feet of paracord. Like I had paracord in every pocket, right? Because I was like, I may need to erect some sort of huck fin raft to like get myself out of an area. Now I have enough rope to say hang a few quarters or act as like a guy line for a tarp if I need to make an emergency shelter. For the next episode of this, Paul will tell a good story about extracting a mountain goat with paracord.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it came in very, very handy. Matter of fact, it helped extract me, as a matter of fact. So.
There's your teaser for next episode, folks.
Yep.
I think I even covered that in one of our newsletter articles. Actually, we talked about some of these same things a while ago.
Yeah.
Mark steals a puffy jacket. Paul's is an adequate amount of paracord. So I carry that in there as well. And then snacks. Food's a big topic, big discussion.
Gosh, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Absolutely.
But that one you can go into the weeds on too.
I had a guy I used to guide with, and he'd always carry a can of dog food around with him, which we always joked about. And but the idea was he would never eat that dog food unless it was life or death. He had that can of dog food to get him through.
Maybe is that like a gauge? Like, if I'm not eating the dog food, I'm okay.
I think so.
If I'm eating the dog food, it's time to get out.
I'm in trouble, yeah.
Till that one guy in your camp gets in your pack and he's like, oh, cool, what's this? Some sort of weird kipper snacks. He's just gobbling that down.
Case of emergency, break dog
Oh,
can.
man.
Food
I think if given the choice of the dog food or hitting my SOS button, I think I'm hitting the button.
Yep.
But still not a bad idea to put a little Alpo in your pack. So it's just a single can of Alpo. And fire starters. We talked about this. Mini Bic lighters. They don't weigh anything. They're fairly waterproof. You can put them in multiple pockets. They are 69 cents at the gas station. I don't think you can have too many Mini Bic lighters. I think I have 2 in my pack at all times, and then I stash them in and about my truck.
Have at least one on your person that you know you're going to, no matter what happens, it will be with you.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. And then sunglasses. I hunt with sunglasses. I don't know. That's a thing for me. Yeah. If I don't have my glasses, I'm doomed.
Big time.
Until they break.
That's true.
That's the only rub with that.
And I guess, just kind of transitioning into wrapping this up. I mean, it's interesting that we talked about a lot of different stuff here, obviously, but the things that I have written down as takeaways are not, and this all wraps a bow on it, gets back to where we started talking about things that are realistic and more affordable things that you need before getting into it. I have stuff like headlamps, a tarp, piece of plastic, knife sharpener, first aid kit, rope, and lighters as big things to have that you don't want to forget.
Yeah.
And those are real.
A couple layers of merino wool and
exactly.
puffy.
Rain gear.
And rain gear.
Rain gear.
But these, these core items, I guess, are things that I think are really going to make stuff easier, more attainable, and at the end of the day, a tarp or piece of plastic, you can sleep under a tarp.
You can wrap yourself up in it on a cold night.
You can throw meat on a sheet of plastic when you're, hopefully boning something out.
Yep. Keep it clean.
Yep. So just little things like that, I think these are the takeaways that I wanted. So I'm glad.
Yeah.
Part 2 is going to be good.
Yeah. And hopefully we can see how this goes.
Yep.
So
I hope I hope you make it back too, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I really hope we can see how this goes.
Oh man, that's dark.
Perfect.
Cool.
Well, what do you say? All right, we'll wrap up part 1 here. As always, thanks everybody for listening, and shoot us any questions if you have any. Hit up Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast to see some behind the scenes stuff and some other cool photos related to what we're talking about here on the podcast. Maybe you'll see some photos of Erik that he takes out there on his hunts too. We'll definitely have to post those up.
Yeah, we'll need a picture of Erik's pack. See what's in that pack.
Yeah,
that's what we goes out there. Yeah.
Yep.
Now the pressure is on.
Yeah.
Perfect. All righty, everybody. Thanks again, and happy hunting and shooting. We'll see you next time. All right, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Vortex Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date on the latest happenings over here at the Vortex Nation podcast. Leave us a review or comment down below. We want to hear what you have to say about the show, maybe what you like, maybe what you didn't like, so that way we can make these podcasts as good as they can be. You can also follow us on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'll be posting about each episode released, so that way you can go back, find these things, maybe grab a little nugget of information that you can take with you to the range, out in the field, or maybe to the kitchen if we're talking about some good food. So, again, everybody, thanks, and happy hunting and shooting. We appreciate it. Have a good one.